Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-A Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Can't take you guys anywhere. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon here, along with Eric Lopez, Andrew Glutkoff, Kyle Nash, Bryson Turner's also in with us here on this first segment. We got a busy show. We're going to talk a little, we were going to talk some basketball. Eric dropped a really good column today that you should read on the site, but man, this baseball thing with Clemson has taken a life of its own on the internet, and it just plays into every single stereotype about Clemson University sports, not to mention UCF's own brand. And we're going to talk about that. UCF sweeping Clemson in Clemson in baseball. John Rice Plumlee having a great weekend, and he wasn't the only one, so we'll talk about that in a second. A little bit later on, we'll also give the well-deserved shout-out to UCF women's track, winning the indoor championship. Very good sign for the upcoming season as they now head to the outdoor season. But let's go ahead and get started with this baseball thing. Oh my gosh. UCF goes into Clemson. All right, this is after, by the way, this is after getting beat midweek by by Noah Goldberg's very own FAU Owls, I should say. You go head up to baseball, and Clemson is, I think you could say this is one of the prime baseball programs in the country. UCF goes in there and drops 27 runs en route to a 3-game sweep. Including a clutch win on Friday, Friday's game that actually went into Saturday because of rain, beat them 4-2, 10-7, and then 13-6. And afterwards, what really happened was the real fun came afterwards. Like, first of all, UCF's baseball team made their way over to Clemson Memorial Stadium. And they have the hill, right? Howard's Rock and all that. And what does UCF do real quick on their way out? Yeah, they decide to partake in a little run down the hill. Hey, that's fun. If you're there at Clemson, you get the chance to do it. Why not? I mean, we're not going to do it in football anytime soon. So, hey, little celebration. And then afterwards, the head coach for Clemson, Derek Bakich, complained after the third game that UCF was a little, quote, mouthy, end quote. Good Lord. I mean, here's the thing, all right? And Eric, I want to start with you this, but my first thing is, look, you don't want your opponent, whoever it is, UCF, Siena, Monmouth, I don't care, South Carolina, you don't want them to spike the football on you? Don't get beat 3 straight in your own backyard. How about that? I mean,
that's pretty accurate. I mean, that's pretty accurate. The reason Eric Bakich is there because Clemson hasn't been doing much winning in baseball recently, so he's there to try to build a program. And yeah, UCF swept them. I mean, I guess some people got mad because they raced through the rock, which I would do if I was at Clemson. That's a cool thing. That's the same school that runs. The fans storm the field after a win over everybody, including
Furman.
Team. So, Furman, right? So settle down. It's base sports. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah. So what is baseball a little chappy? Yeah. There's always some chatter going on. There's chatter in football. There's chatter in basketball. How about how you avoid that? You win a game. Don't get swept at home.
Yeah, don't get swept at home. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This just plays into the brand of UCF so perfectly because we're punching up and we go up to their place and beat them. And then Clemson comes back and they're like, oh, well, they were a little mouthy, and we're running down the hill on Howard's Rock and all that. And how dare this program come into our house and treat our established program like this? And it's like, you know what? Take a hike. You know, I just love when we get to be the villain. What were you saying earlier, Kyle?
Cry harder.
Cry harder. And Drew was right out of the way. He was like, cry hard, cry harder, cry harder with a vengeance.
Come on, this is UCF is the heel. They're D-Generation X, and they have 2 words for Clemson, and I'm sure you know what they are.
Yeah.
What, cry harder?
Yeah.
Isn't this kind of been the thing? And I know this is the baseball section, but you Dukes of the Diamond need to understand. This was Danny White. This goes back to him on the field after that the win against Auburn. You know, UCF national champs. And that moment on, it's kind of like the way I put it on the Mark Moses show the other day when I was talking to him as a guest was, this is the same to me. I get that same feel with UCF's group as when LeBron took his talents to South Beach and became the villain figure in the NBA. This is where UCF is at, and they're trying to climb up. Now, granted, they never said not 1, not 2, not 3. They don't have that going for them. But now that they're in the Power 5, and I know it matters, technically speaking, in no other sport than football, but PR-wise, that's a big deal. And I feel like this is that villain role that you're looking for. This is that villain role that has Jeff finding that Kylo Ren meme or gif saying, more!
Yeah.
This is where they're at.
More. That's what I want. I want to talk about the baseball in particular, Bryson Turner, because this was an impressive offensive performance. And by the way, we should mention Andrew Brate won Conference Player of the Week for his performance in this game. But, 2 double-digit, 2 10-plus run games here on the road against an ACC opponent. This is exactly what you need. Coming off that midweek loss to FAU, this is exactly how you want to recover from that.
Oh yes, the UCF offense ended up just succeeding when it mattered the most. Of course, you have game 1 with that 1-inning shootout after the rain. Nick Romano with the RBI single, Brate taking one for the team there. But I think the biggest 2 instances of this are in games 2 and 3, where they were at one point during the game, both teams were tied 6-6. And then UCF takes advantage of Clemson miscues, by the way, which is why I think they were a little bit salty after the game, because
they got no one to blame for it but themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't, and that's why they're mad at it, and they have to accept it. You messed up. Deal with it.
Right.
So, but basically,
screwed up again.
Errors, walks. Basically, UCF took advantage of those things and ended up building up the leads that they ended up getting. Tom Jostin went and got 3 home runs over the course of the whole series, breaking out there in the power. Then, of course, Ben McCabe hits his 35th homer of his career, which ties him for the 6th most in program history. We're going to be watching that this season. And then you also have Ben Vespi on the mound getting his first action of the year, pitching 2 innings in game 3 and getting the win. So a little bit of action there. John Rice Plumlee getting some action as well. Overall, this is how you want to rebound.
Getting some action.
Yeah,
getting some action.
He's stealing home runs, getting some action. Come on, Bryson.
He's showing up on SportsCenter. He's stealing home runs. He's hitting home runs himself. What is happening out here? This guy, the best case scenario right now for John Rice Plumlee, right, Eric?
Absolutely. Listen, the guy hit over 300, hit a home run, played good glove. We had Greg on the show. He's compared him to Jeffrey Pena, which, because everybody was talking about this whole football-baseball split. I don't know what kind of baseball player he was. When he compared him to Jeffrey Pena, I'm like, whoa. And he's really a good player. Yes, he's going to strike out a few. Guess what? Every baseball player now strikes out 1 million times. That's just baseball in today's landscape, all right? but he's a very good baseball player. Jeff, you said it before, in that preview show. You said he could help win a couple of games for this team. Well, I think you were thinking about his legs.
Right.
You were thinking about his bat, which he did in the second game of that Clemson series. He really helped them win that game with his bat. And I know that some football fans are going to like this comment, but there is no reason John Rice Plumlee should be at the spring game at all. His priority should be baseball right now because he can help make this team make the tournament. That's the thing. This is the thing. This Clemson series, I don't know who knows how good Clemson is. The fact they're whining about this suggests to me maybe they're not that good. But what I hope this is kind of like the Auburn series in 2020 when UCF swept Auburn and eventually got to the top 20 and looked like was going to have a great year until the world shut down. I hope that's the momentum, and I think that's part of the charm of the personality for them. I don't think they're trying to be. I think there's a confidence they have to have, and they bring to the road to have success for this team to try to get back to where it is, and it worked for them this week. They're obviously. My guess is they were told if you sweep this team, we're going to run the rock, and that's motivation, and they did that. So I have no issues at all with what baseball did. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a positive season here, confidence booster.
Yeah, I mean, I love when we are in this position, but now, of course, you got to look. By the way, JRP's stats. I think I should pop these up just to mention. So far in the season, 318, OPS of 862 in 6 games, 7-22 at the plate, one home run, 4 RBI, 6 runs scored. And he's got a 407 on base percentage, walked 3 times, struck out 9. So, I was going by kind of the whole, don't expect too much because how much of him are we going to see? We didn't really know. So far, I really like what he exceeded expectations. So, go ahead, Bryson.
You know what? I think that it was genius because I know we were talking about this in the season is, the outfield's so crowded. How is JRP going to play into it? Well, I think Greg Love was a genius lineup decision, or Ted Tom, whoever made the decision, to instead put Lex Bodeker at DH so that way you can have all 3, Brady Shannon, Corey Robinson, and John Rice Plumlee in the outfield. And I think that's benefited this lineup immensely. I mean, between that, having Drew Farrow at shortstop, who had a great weekend himself, by the way, I think this offense is getting off to a much better start to the season than they had last season. It took a little while last season for the offense to really get going. So the fact that they're starting as well as they did this season, by the way, they currently lead the American with 18 home runs so far.
It's like sneaking some time over to the batting cages in football season's paying off.
Yeah, you're not kidding. But now the next bit, though, is you got Georgia Southern coming in and for a 3-game set over the weekend. And as I'm looking through what they've done so far this year, they took 2 out of 3 from West Virginia, lost a tight one to Georgia Tech, won 2 out of 3 against ETSU. They got they got Mercer tonight before they come down here to UCF. But don't sleep on Georgia Southern. By the way, UCF is at Bethune-Cookman. By the way, at Jackie Robinson Ballpark tonight. We're recording this Tuesday, so can't forget about that. But I want to look forward to that. I do, take care of business against Bethune like you're supposed to. Look at Georgia Southern. Eric, what are we thinking from this particular weekend? I mean, because this is one of those opponents that's like you probably think initially, Georgia Southern, they're pretty good.
Well, look, Georgia Southern was a national seed last year. They hosted a regional. They were a top 16 seed.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the highlight of UCF season last year is when they went up there and won 2 out of 3. I mean, I said this before. I think this is one of Greg's toughest non-conference schedules. This is a resume series. It's a big series, and
they went 41-20 last year. Georgia Southern,
right? Yeah, I mean they've got talented players. I mean Noah Ledford is one of the best players in the country. It's probably going to be the Sun Belt Player of the Year. They're good. So it's another challenging weekend. It's a question of, can they build on the momentum from the Clemson game? On the pitching, does the pitching get a little better? Cam Light, or can he go deeper into the games? What do we see from the staff as a whole? And can they slow down an offense like Georgia Southern? I don't know. Can the offense continue? We'll see. It's just building that momentum from the Clemson series. And I'm intrigued to see how this team comes back home. And that's the thing. We've seen glimpses over the last couple of years, and then either an injury happens or a tough series happens. They just got to build on the Clemson series. And, but it's not going to be easy. Georgia Southern's really good.
Yeah. They were top 10 RPI last year.
Yeah.
Toward the end of the year. I mean, that was so. All right. Hey, got to handle that. Got to handle Bethune. Got to handle Bethune on Tuesday at Jackie Robinson, and then handle Georgia Southern. Last word to you, Bryson.
Speaking of Bethune, that game's going to be a particularly special one for Nick Romano because that will be his first time back at Jackie Robinson Ballpark since he tore his ACL there last year. Yeah. So and already he's off to another good start this year, of course, after the stuff he's been going through. So that'll be a little storyline for the Tuesday night's game.
All right, so we'll keep that in mind as well. Real quick, Eric Lopez, I want to shift gears over to softball, and we'll come up with basketball after the break. But it's off to California for the Judy Garman Classic, another one of these really tough not out of conference tournaments. This one all the way out west. You got Fullerton, Loyola, UCLA, Fresno, Michigan. Also another date with the Wolverines here for UCF in this tournament. Give us the lowdown on this thing.
It's going to turn into a rivalry. I believe that will be the fourth meeting between UCF and Michigan since last May in the regionals there. It's a challenging schedule. Loyola Marymount is the West Coast Conference champs. They're an NCAA tournament team. UCLA is the number 2 team in the country. They're going to be upset after getting trounced by Oklahoma this past weekend. It's a challenge for this young pitching staff that continues to be a work in progress. They've been up and down. They've shown some promise, but they've been inconsistent, and we've seen that in the results last week. They went 4-3 on a busy week. Up and down would be the word, and work in progress. Their pitching staff right now is 1.5 whip. That's not good. I believe they have 63 walks and 113 innings pitched. That's got to change if they want to be successful and accomplish their goals. Sarah Willis was tremendous as a closer this past weekend. I think they found something there. The question is, can she be a starter? Can they get consistent starting pitching? That remains to be seen. I know this. They can score runs and they can hit the ball out of the park. They are in the top 10 in the country in home runs, which if you would have told me 16 years ago, we'd be saying UCF softball be in the top 10 in home runs. I said, you're crazy. So this is a weird UCF team. We're used to seeing great pitching and sort of scratch out some runs offensively. Right now, we're the complete opposite. It's very bizarre. So it's going to come down to, does the pitching grow up? Does it develop fast enough? There's still time, but it is unique. And I understand everybody's been blowing me up during games, which, by the way, folks, I don't check social media when I'm on the air. So
he actually does it the right way, right? He's not
I can't everybody. It's funny.
He's busy.
I am busy. I call 10 games this week. I check my Chota. It's hey, what's going on here in this first inning? I'm like, dude, I'm on the air. Just watch the game and find out for yourself. But there's been a lot of questions asking me about the pitching, and I understand the standards are super high at this school when it comes to pitching, and so it's very fair questions. Just don't ask me during the game. That's all I ask. But I will.
You can ask during the game. It's just he's not going to reply to you until after.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring you. I'm not being a jerk. I'm not dodging you. I'm literally busy. I do address some of these. This will come out on the Banneret. I'll have an article out. People have been asking, "Where's your softball article?" I'm like, "Hey man, I'm busy. I literally passed out and slept the whole day Monday, and then I wrote this Johnny Dawkins column. So I got around to the softball. But again, the pitching staff's got to, figure out what roles they have, who steps up into the role. We'll see what happens.
What's the game out of these 5 that you're going to be looking the most closely at? Because I got on Thursday they have Fresno and Michigan, Friday UCLA and LMU, and then Saturday Fullerton. So, what's the one that you're like? This is if I had to watch one, what's it going to be?
Well, I think the majority are going to watch UCLA because of who they are, but I'm going to watch Fullerton and Loyola Marymount because those are 2 teams. Fullerton just knocked off Florida at Mary Nutter this past weekend. I mean, this schedule is like
brutal.
A group of death schedule. My goodness, it's just quality teams that are getting votes or top 25. So I know everybody's looking at the record 9-8. I'm telling you, this schedule I'm not totally shocked about the record because this schedule is rough.
I mean, you said last week, man, watch out for Louisiana. And they were great.
Really good. There's a reason I picked the Cajuns to get to Oklahoma City. They're really talented. Louisville's probably going to be an NCAA tournament team. The one bugaboo loss is Stetson. Again, control issues. 3 walks in the bottom of the 7th. An error leads to 3 Stetson runs in to win, and that's the thing that's frustrating about this team right now. But it's young. It's a young group. You know this, Jeff, is a parent. Kyle, you're a parent. Drew, you're a parent. Bryson, well, you're a kid. It's maturity.
Wow.
It's the kids got to grow up on their own, right? You wish they could be mature right off the bat and all that, but it's going to take time, and there's some growing pains with the pitching staff. I wish it was quicker, but you got to let it go on its pace. I dive into that on the article there, but that's going to be the key. I'm going to be curious how this pitching staff handles the West Coast umpires, which are notorious for being really bad.
We knew there was going to be an officiating or umpiring dig at some point in this show, and I'm surprised you just waited this long.
We're 20 minutes in. I would have lost. I totally had the under on that.
Shout out Savannah Adams, by the way, Player of the Week. We mentioned Braid. How about that? Baseball, softball, getting Player of the Week. Savannah Adams, 4 home runs this week. It's really breaking out right now. She was the one that hit the big pinch hit home run against Houston last year. So she's been a nice revelation there in their middle of their lineup. Like I said, this offense is really good. We just need the pitching to get better, which is a weird
comment. Could use a few more of those this weekend. By the way, I don't see any TV for these games. These games being televised?
No, they're not. Unfortunately, they are on Flow Softball, which is a garbage streaming service. Do not pay for that. It's a despicable race.
Shots fired. Officiating and streaming services in one go.
Tune in to In the Circle softball podcast this week. We go into that in depth about how bad Flow softball is for the sport of softball. Thank you.
Ooh, wow. Listen, this might be softball, but listen, Elo's still doing plenty of dunking as if it was a full-on basketball contest.
Speaking of which, excellent segue. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, that's why he's the student of the game, kids. Men's basketball wiping out. We won at Tulsa. We get to talk about that. Last couple games of the regular season for the men's basketball team. What's at stake? And Eric Lopez with a big column today about Johnny Dawkins. That and women's basketball when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We back. It's Jeff and Eric and Kyle and Drew. We're talking a little basketball here. UCF men's basketball got off the schneid. 16-12 right now, 7-9 in the conference. But, oh my God, we won at Tulsa. After the disappointing game at home Wednesday night against South Florida, the 82-75 loss where, man, that was, I got to say that, speaking as a fan, that was one of the toughest losses to take that I've seen on that floor in a long time. But give them credit. Came right back on Sunday, and you're thinking, and I know we're all thinking like, oh gosh, we got to follow this up by going to Tulsa, house of horrors for every sport seemingly. And they get the win by 19 points. The star of the game, once again, Taylor Hendricks. Probably, Eric, what would you say? His best game yet overall? 25 points, 8 rebounds, 10 of 16 from the field.
Definitely his most aggressive game, and definitely his obviously career high 25 points, was dominant, was a factor all over both sides of the court.
12 points each for Ithiel Horton and CJ Kelly, and they held UCF was up 18 at the half, held Tulsa to 14 points in the first half, and just 6 of 22 from the field in that first half as well. And so the situation right now for UCF looks like this: they are at Temple on Thursday. March the 2nd at 7 p.m. ESPNU for that game. That won't be easy playing at Temple. It rarely is. And then senior night Sunday, March the 5th against ECU at home. And then it's off to Fort Worth and Dickies Arena for the AAC Championship. And Eric, you dropped a big old column on the site today where you come to the defense of Johnny Dawkins, and I think there've been it's no secret right now that there have been a lot of fans who've been critical of Johnny and the team in general during this really rough stretch that started really with the injury to Michael Durr, and you make a couple of really key points about, hey, UCF right now is actually and has been overachieving with Johnny.
Yeah, that's pretty understatement. Like, I kind of, I was driving back from DeLand, which my own heartbreaking loss, a good softball there. And I was talking to Kyle, who's covering the USF game, and obviously Bryson, and talking to Drew, and, and all the, I was trying to get feedback. I was trying to get a sense, because obviously I didn't watch the South Florida game live. And it was, it was a tough loss. No question. Tough loss. They beat Tulsa Sunday, which was good. They were up 50-19 at one point. So I decided to write the article, and then I noticed, like, wait a minute, they just clinched a winning season for the 6th time in 7 seasons in the Dawkins era. And the one season they didn't have a winning season was that COVID year where there was a bunch of cancellations, and they lost a home game to Memphis, and they had to play Memphis twice in Memphis, and they went 11-12. Or just throw that a year out. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, everybody's flipping out. I remember, and I could be wrong, guys, we were on the show back in October. Did anybody ever say, hey, UCF should be an NCAA tournament team?
There you go.
No? We were picked 6th in the conference in the preseason poll.
Picked 6th. There was no expectations. I think everybody was under the impression, hey, we have all these new faces. I don't know what to expect from this team.
I think a lot of people thought that was a little high too, don't you?
Right. I didn't know. Then you get to opening night. You find out there's no C.J. Walker. There's no Darius Johnson. Literally, it's a team you don't even recognize opening night. Like, what is going on here? They find a way to kind of overcome that after that tough loss in overtime. Now you beat Florida State. Now, if I told you back in October you beat Florida State and Ole Miss, you're like, yeah, right. Well, they did. Now, it turns out, this is what I'm going to get to. This team is
and Oklahoma State, too, by the way.
I was going to mention
beat Oklahoma State. They have a good non-conference. C.J. Walker misses the season. Only plays 4 games. This is a guy that was going to be your best big guy. With all due respect, we didn't know what Michael Durr was going to be, but C.J. Walker was your best big coming back. You lose him for 4 games. Darius Johnson's been in and out of the lineup. They've had all these injuries. They put themselves in a position in January where we're actually discussing NCAA tournament. And I caution everybody, whoa, it's a little early. I enjoy talking about it because I like projections. Me and Drew do bold projections for crying out loud in November because we enjoy it. It's a good humorous exercise. And I feel like what's happened, since Drew brought up a wrestling term in the first segment, I'll bring this up. I think we worked ourselves from a work to a shoot. We worked ourselves into a shoot. We started hyping it up now to the point where now we're disappointed that we're not a postseason team. We're not an NCAA team when there was no expectations. Nobody had any idea how good this team was. It's not like they grabbed a bunch of blue chippers on this roster. I actually think Dawkins has done a good job considering all the injuries, and we're being critical of him, which maybe it says a good thing about him because he's had success here to the point where people think this. But I think we've gotten way too far. And we do this with basketball. We judge this like if it's football, and it's not. And that was my whole point in the column college football is not college basketball. They're two different things. There's 352 college basketball programs that play Division I. Jeff knows this because he spent time in the Northeast. There's a lot of schools that don't give a bleep about football, that don't have football in the FBS level, that care about college basketball, that invest in college basketball. We are a football school. That doesn't mean you can't be successful in basketball, but it's a lot harder. And it just drives me nuts that we're driving, that people don't understand. It's people that don't know any of the inner doings in basketball. They just don't get it. It just drives me nuts. So I just decided to write my 2 cents on it and bring up, this is not just an issue that's been going on since Coach Dawkins. This has been going on since we were students. We've all experienced it. Going back to, how many of us here, not Bryson, as we've established, he's very young.
Bryson was
But all of us has gone to a UCF. Yeah, that's true. All of us have been to a UCF basketball game at the old arena, which is now the venue, when we were excited when we drew 1,000 people. Am I right?
Yeah.
It was the garage.
That was like 17, 18 years ago.
We were thrilled when there was a decent amount of fans in the second level of the old arena.
Right.
And listen, I get a lot of fans who say, yeah, but hey, we've moved on from that now. and there's that word, should be, XYZ. And I think one of the things that you brought up in the column is, the chase for resources. So we did a little research on this. I helped you out with it. When you look at what UCF has done, in terms of its winning percentage compared to its budget, UCF's budget, men's basketball budget, this is according to Three Man Weave, who pulled this data. Their men's basketball budget is third from the bottom in the American. All right, eclipsing only the likes of South Florida and ECU. Okay, and by the way, now UCF has done a very good job of maintaining its budget post-COVID. We did a little comparison, thanks to that data from before COVID, April 2020, all around COVID, to post-COVID. Everyone's kind of taken a haircut across the board, except for, strangely enough, Wichita State, who really poured a lot of money. Even Houston lost money. Cincinnati saw their men's basketball budget nearly cut in half, and they've taken a haircut across everything. They cut men's soccer. They lost Luke Fickell. They lost Mick Cronin to UCLA. They had to throw more money than I think they wanted to at Wes Miller to come in there, but they're really struggling. But UCF has managed to keep their budget actually relatively stable over this 2-year period. But the problem is it's still low. And then we bring in the Big 12 budget comparison, guys. UCF right now, this according to Three Man Weave, budget of about $4.27 million for men's basketball. That is dead last in the Big 12 when you look at the including all the incoming teams and including Texas and Oklahoma, obviously.
And it's not close.
It's not right. It is not close. It is less than 25% of what Texas is putting out in men's hoops. And if we put Texas and Oklahoma aside, Kansas has the highest budget in the Big 12, $14 million. $14 million a year. Yes, I get it. It's Kansas, all right? TCU's at $11 million. Baylor's at $10 million. Texas Tech is at $8 million. That's your top four of the remaining schools. And Kelvin Sampson talked about this, right, Eric? Because Houston took a bit of a hit, and he's like, "Hey, we got to catch up." And he can speak for everybody who's coming into the Big 12, right?
Yeah, if he says they're behind the Big 12, I mean, good Lord. I mean, they're
Houston.
They're still behind. Now, he has the benefit. What he doesn't mention is he's got a heavy booster there that's helped them out behind the scenes with the facilities and the arena. But they are behind, and we are behind. And it's nobody's fault. I'm not calling anybody out. As I mentioned in the article, Danny White was a basketball guy, played at Notre Dame, comes from a basketball family background. He brought in Johnny Dawkins. He couldn't fix this. There are internal stuff. It's nobody's fault. I'm not saying that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just the challenges that it is that every UCF coaches have, and the future UCF coaches will also have moving forward. And I don't think the Big 12 is an automatic fix with the money coming in. Does it help? Sure, but they are still logistical stuff. And I just think we've gotten out of control. I think it's way out of control with some of the people's rationale. I just don't think especially when people don't follow college basketball. I'm sorry. I've seen the numbers. This is an NBA market. People care more about the Magic, even when they stink, than they do college basketball. People obviously care more about football, rightfully, and I get that. That's understandable. But, Kyle, to me, it's just gotten out of control here with the expectations. This is not a blue blood. This is not a team that was supposed to be a top 25 team. It's a team that's had a ton of injuries, and it's had some bad luck. Think about the buzzer beater against Missouri, one of the luckiest shots ever in Sunrise.
All the overtime games, 5 overtime games, which is the most in school history in one season.
Think about the turnover late at Memphis there. This team could have easily – I think if this team was healthy, if this team had C.J. Walker and had Darius Johnson healthy for the whole year, and Michael Durr, who has surprised me and how much better – I didn't know how he would fit. He's been a better fit than I thought. This team may be a 20-plus win team probably in the NCAAs if they were healthy, but they weren't.
Yeah, no, all of the above a great point, but I'll see that and raise you this. Listen, all you all you Johnny Dawkins, fire Johnny Dawkins folks out here, I got bad news for you. The only way Dawkins, with all the fiscal evidence provided, not just on this pod in the past, but very eloquently put by Elo's article and the smidgen of data sprinkled in by Jeff, make it clear. The only way the post-Johnny Dawkins era starts, for now, is if Johnny leaves. Because you're not getting anyone any better at the price that UCF is willing to afford. And that's the hard truth all the Johnny Dawkins haters don't account for. And this isn't football or basketball bias or any of that or any points of view, though everything you say is absolutely correct, Elo. This is all 100% economics, okay? Follow the money. The money is undefeated, maybe second only to Father Time as well. I get all of that, and really it's the best thing to explain. Now, there's a lot, and we've talked about this too, there's a lot more maybe that the program can do that's lower hanging fruit, but I don't run that budget, and the Big 12 money isn't coming overnight. I think you kind of alluded to that too, Elo. So for my money, and by the way, for all the people who claim that Johnny Dawkins can't recruit, I think this year alone is evidence beyond a reasonable, even take Taylor Hendricks out of it, because, he's going to be gone next year anyway. Y'all looking forward to some of the cats he's already got on the roster. I know not everybody will come back necessarily, obviously. I believe CJ Kelly, for example, is a guy who's playing his last year, et cetera. But there's more of a nucleus with this group than there was last year, and everyone keeps forgetting there were two essential elements that left 2 years ago, right? Darius Perry, Darren Green, both left. Now, I know Drew especially will be happy to see Perry walk just because we were able to improve at that position. But another thing I have to say too about Johnny Dawkins recruiting, the 2 times this year he's played transfers that came back, they were both among the top 2 scorers for the team they faced. Darren Green, of course, with FSU, and Jameel Reynolds, a backup center who put up 16, being a top guy with another program. But he was a backup here. But please tell me more about how Dawkins can't recruit. I don't get that either, frankly.
I think one of the thing that you touched on in the column article that I think is really kind of struck me is, the one thing that you're getting with Coach Dawkins is a guy who already knows how power conference college basketball works. He has elevated UCF's national profile, not just through the scheduling, but you touched upon it. There are movers and shakers in the college basketball world who are paying attention to UCF because Johnny is there. And when you couple that with the fact that this is a program that can attract talent and has a coach who does attract talent in Johnny. So why throw it out and start over now? Right?
Right. Well, especially with a guy, it could get worse. It's funny. The other comment I see, Dawkins wasn't successful at Stanford. I'm like, he wasn't? He got him to a Sweet 16, got him to an NIT Final Four. He won 57% of his games at Stanford. Let's see, how's Stanford been doing since he left and that departure?
One postseason appearance since then. That was in the NIT.
Right, and they're on the mix of having a 4th non-winning season right now. That job might open actually again this season.
Yeah, Jared has been their coach for 7 years there. He has one postseason appearance there.
And by the way, I don't think he had a great resources there at Stanford either, as we have learned from the Pac-12 and their financial issues. It's not like Stanford's a hotbed for financial supporting, but they probably have more than UCF. So I just think it's wrong. Again, I'm not saying that there isn't rights to be criticism. The South Florida loss is very disappointing, especially if it ends up keeping this team out of postseason. I get it. But that's, you can nitpick everything. And I'm the guy that says, hey, it's okay to be critical of teams with expectations of football and softball right now. Trust me, I'm listening about it softball right now. Volleyball, soccer. I get it. The difference is there's no justification for men's basketball. We were the worst college basketball program in the 80s. We have made one at large tournament bid. The coach, Johnny Dawkins, was the one that did that. We were a tip-in away from a Sweet 16. We made the NIT Final Four. We've actually done some good things here that we've not done before, and we're getting talented players. We got talented players in the mix of being recruiting. Give the guy a chance. I think he's earned the right to coach in the Big 12, in my opinion. I think he's done a lot considering how little he has to work with. I've said this. People kind of disagree with me on this. I think the men's basketball coach at UCF is the hardest job on campus of all the coaches because you don't have the backing that football does. Yes, football stuff. I don't want to make it sound like the other coaches don't have hard jobs. They're all hard. But men's basketball, I think it's multiplied because you're in the shadow of football. It's always football first. And you're in the shadow of an indoor sport, and you're in a market that doesn't embrace college basketball, quite frankly. It's a bandwagon town.
The only way I'd correct you, Elo, is coming in and having to do what Johnny Dawkins did after the program you're in had an iconic year, enter Satia Messer. But I say all that to say this, my friend. The one thing we're not talking enough about either with Dawkins, as you see with a lot of prominent basketball coaches of success, it feels like, is no scandals, no issues, nothing extra to worry about off the court as well. And in particular basketball, that's it shouldn't be something we point out as, hey, everybody should do it. That's not life.
Well, look at what's going on at Alabama and the disgrace that's going on right there right now.
For example.
I mean, some people might actually not care about that, but to me that's disgraceful. And that's college basketball in a nutshell, though, now. There's a lot of programs that win because they go beyond over the line. UCF does not want to do that. That derailed Donnie Jones, that whole era with that. That really set the program back a lot. And I don't think people really understand how much those violations set the program back, which is what Dawkins inherited, was picked last in his first year and got him to an NIT Final Four. He helped Stanford win a couple NITs, as Nick reminded me there. The guy can coach. Is he perfect? No. Is there things that could get better? Yes. But I think people are delusional. Like, I keep seeing all these big names like, oh, let's bring in Chris Beard. Really? You want that PR? You want the PR of a guy that just allegedly strangled his wife or his fiance, excuse me? Allegedly? Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You want Rick Pitino? Rick Pitino wouldn't touch this job. Rick Pitino can end up being at St. John's, which is a better job. Think about that. St. John's is a better job than us. That's not a knock on UCF. That's just the reality of college basketball that fans do not understand. You're not going to get a big name. Doesn't mean you can't get a good coach, but it's a harder job. It's not as an attractive a job as some fans think. This is not football. And that's the only thing I get annoyed with. Stop comparing this to football. Stop. Here's the example. It really made me ticked off was when we lost to Missouri. I watched that game. And they lose on the bank on a buzzer beater fluke shot. I was livid. That was a brutal loss. 30 minutes later, it comes out that Travis Williams is going to Arkansas. Everybody flipped out about that more than the basketball game. I'm sorry. You're not a basketball school. If you care more about your stupid defensive coordinator, leave it for Arkansas. Sorry. You don't have it. You have no qualifications, no credibility to be involved in this conversation. If you're upset about Travis Williams, leave for Arkansas. Sorry.
Kyle, give this man a hug.
I listen. I'm
ready to drop the Kylo Ren gif again. More.
I was going to make that joke.
That might be the first contender for Rant of the Year right there.
Are you saying that we need a new Banneret award here? Rant of the Year? Okay.
I mean, just for Eric, because I know how much you love to do that.
I don't think I caught that whole thing. Are you saying we're not a basketball school?
Oh, stop it.
All right. But let me go back for a second. Listen, 2 regular season games left. You win them both. You're at 18-12. You're 2 wins away from a 20-win season. What's the seeding situation for the AAC tournament right now, Eric? What's it look like?
If they win the next 2 games, they got a chance to be a top 6 seed, maybe even higher, 5 seed, something like that. And with a win in the conference tournament, you get to 19 wins. That might be good enough to sneak into the NIT. That might be good enough. The Temple game's the key here. Temple's tough at home. They've underachieved. They're an actual basketball school.
They're 8-7 at home. They're 8-7 at home this year. 9-7 in the conference. 15-14 overall. They are the definition of middling.
By the way, gentlemen, they have yet to face Temple with Michael Durr. I think that's worth mentioning.
Right, Durr missed the first meeting, so that should help him in this match. But it's a tough matchup.
And guess who was good in the last meeting? It was Jameel Reynolds.
There you go.
So that's going to be a tough game. But, top 6. If they lose, if they split these 2 games, they're probably going to be in that 7-8 spot. Who knows? You're just hoping, that's what stinks about the USF losses is I think if you avoid that, if you split that, you're probably in a better position from an NIT standpoint, which would be a success for this team. But the thing that they're going to need is they need more of what we saw from Taylor Hendricks on Sunday. Everybody loves Taylor Hendricks. He's had a great year. He should be freshman of the year in the American. It's probably going to come down to him and Walker from Houston. The one thing he's got to, and we saw this on Sunday, is sometimes he's too passive. And that's not his fault. He's a freshman. That happens. He was aggressive on Sunday. If he can be aggressive, this team can make some noise come the conference tournament. That's why I personally think he needs another year. But, I could say that about a lot of basketball guys. Don't even get me started on that. I think a lot of these players get terrible advice in basketball. I think they should follow the football model personally, but that's just me as far as getting information, because I feel like more football players get better information than basketball players do. Because I feel like everybody's always told, hey, you're a first rounder. And then by the time you get to the draft, hey, I didn't get drafted. What happened? Oh, because 70,000 guys declared. Yeah. But I think he's really good. He's had a great year. He's got to be aggressive, in my opinion.
Real quick, add to your point, Elo, like you mentioned the tournament seeding and all that. By the same token, I don't think anybody in the American is going, oh, goody, we get to play UCF. There's a little bit of funk on that, especially with their ability to come through and close games when they have done so.
Right. And Johnny told you at the post-game USF is like they're trying to, they're getting these guys back from injury. They're trying to find that nucleus, that chemistry. It's just hard when you have guys in and out of the lineup. Can they get this in time for the conference tournament? We'll see. This week could help in that. That's the key. We'll see if it happens.
At Temple Thursday, 7 p.m. ESPNU in Philly. Home for ECU senior night on Sunday. And we'll be keeping an eye on who exactly decides to walk for senior night as well. That now becomes, it's funny, in the age of the portal and post-COVID with the extra year, that now becomes a source of, a little bit of pregame drama, right? Like who walks on senior day. And, I'm here's to hoping it's as few guys as possible. I want to go over to the to women's basketball. We got to give a big old shout out to UCF Women's Hoops. Got back to 500 at 13-13 with 2 consecutive victories last Tuesday against Temple in the Play for K game. In what was a tight game going down to the wire. UCF figured out a way to win. That's what they needed to do. And then on Saturday against Cincinnati, went in there on senior night and took care of business again. It took overtime, but UCF got the W. Key players here: Destiny Thomas, 6 of 13 in 42 minutes on the floor, 9 of 14 from the line. A 20-20 game for Desto. 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 offensive, 10 defensive to go with 4 blocks and 5 steals. Just I think Dick Vitale would call that a stat sheet stuffer game for Destiny Thomas. And Kyle and Bryson, you guys were following that very tightly. And what if this is it for Destiny Thomas? What a way to go out on the home floor. And if for a player who's stuck around, is at least starting the rebuild. Wow.
It's funny you mentioned that. I actually talked to her after the game about that very concept. But here's the thing. She had a chance to close it out in regulation and missed the free throws. That game in its entirety, the ladies missed 11 total free throws, which made it a close game at all, even in the first place, to give Cincinnati an opportunity to come back. Credit to Cincinnati. They took advantage, most definitely. But I had asked her, after she sunk 4 straight, opening overtime, after Rachel Ranke hit the 3, I says to her, did any part of you go, we could have been done already? And she brings up the teammates in the huddle saying the very thing, the other seniors that had walked as well. They brought up that very same point. Wow, what a way to go out. She goes, I know a better way. How about doing it in regulation? So, and of course, that moment, if you want to see her responding to that question, you'll find that on the Black and Gold Banneret Twitter feed, by the way, Bing! Or the Instagram as well. But they said the very same thing that you did there too. And hey, listen, credit to Maya Burns as well. A very big element to UCF getting off the ground to allow Destiny to take it on her back to finish it out. As they did, the rebounding differential was crazy. She and Nate Hutton dominated the boards in crazy fashion, as they tend to do. And listen, as much as we talk about the cupboard being bare for Johnny Dawkins, Satia Messer coming in and having a chance to finish with a winning record is in itself an accomplishment. I think she would tell you the very same thing. I know she had alluded to that being something that would be a nice to have, but seeing this as a growing opportunity, that's what she said to me Tuesday after the Temple game. So yeah, there's a lot to. Obviously, listen, we know I'm a big Destiny Thomas homer on this show. I'm an apologist even to that point. I don't use that a lot, but for her, I definitely am. And to see her become not just a body that can grab boards and do putbacks, she's become an overall athlete as well, getting involved. Had 4 steals in the game in question as well, Jeff. So, if she decides to go elsewhere, because we can confirm she's planning on playing her last year of eligibility with the COVID year. If she goes somewhere else, of course, Godspeed, but it would be great to have her back and see her do battle with the Big 12. She's put SEC opponent centers on their back. I don't think she'd have trouble doing the same, and it would be interesting to see her be a keystone of this lineup next year.
Yeah. All right, so let's turn our attention now to the women's basketball tournament, which starts on Monday, March the 6th. So before our next show, they're going to be underway here. Now it starts with now who gets the buys, right? The 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5 teams get buys. So you have 9, 8, 10, 7, and 11, 6 on Monday. Right now, UCF is sitting in the 10 spot, which means they would face the 7 seed as I flip through the standings, and that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be Tulsa, who they are playing in their final game, by the way.
Right.
At Tulsa. Now, this is a gettable game for UCF because Tulsa is 6-9 in the conference, 16-12 overall. UCF right now at 4-10 in the conference, and it's all. I get it. It's always hard to win at Tulsa, but there's a non-zero chance of being able to get. It's not like they're playing South Florida again or Memphis. Somebody up at the top. This is a gettable game. You get this game, all right, then you're at 5-10 in the conference. And by the way, this is where I think that SMU cancellation kind of plays in here too, right, Kyle? Because they, if you win that game, you go 5-10, but then it goes to win percentage. You don't get, and they have, and I'm guessing they're not going to make that game up. So, because I haven't seen that confirmed one way or the other, but I haven't gotten word on it either. So, as of right now, you could see a potential rematch between UCF and Tulsa. Right now, Tulsa's tied in the standings with Wichita State. But, your journey begins there. And by the way, all those games will be on ESPN Plus, and we'll be following them on that Monday. But, at the very least, looking at that, at where that would be, Kyle, in that cluster of teams, UCF at 4-10, Temple, Wichita State, Tulsa, who, Tulane's at 7-8. Who would you rather UCF find a way to play in that first round to get that win under their belt?
I would like to see that Temple rematch personally, in a selfish fashion, because I like physical basketball anyway. That's why Destiny Thomas is so fun to watch. But that would be a dogfight, and one I think that UCF can win, especially if they polish up their free throw shooting. I think the past 2 games, definitely the third quarter in particular, has been a struggle throughout the year, and missing free throws has been huge in the past 2 games in particular. Sure, they still won the games at the end of the day, but you didn't have to have an overtime game, for example, with Cincinnati if free throws got hit, so. But
I'm with you on that. I think that if you're CTMS, you're thinking either Wichita or Temple, because remember they've beaten Wichita already once anyway, but that was one of the teams that they only played once in the regular season, right. And that was in Kansas, right? Remember that game? So UCF won it by 3. So it's going to be, either way. You figure out who you want to play, and from there, pick out your right matchup. I think that UCF does match up better with Temple personally. I think I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm. And then it's just a question of, who do you get in the second round? If you're in that 9-8 game, that means you're playing South Florida in the next round. If you end up going into the 10-7 where UCF is right now, then you play the number 2 seed who has yet to be determined. That would be either Memphis or ECU at this point. They're separated by 1 game. They're going to sort out 2 and 3 this weekend. So We'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll be keeping an eye on the seeding. There's a lot of again, and Kyle, you were talking about it in the internal chat this week. I mean, this tiebreaker situation is really something considering that SMU game that got postponed. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some track and field, indoor track and field. UCF winning it again in their last go around of the American, the indoors. We head to the outdoors, and plus we'll catch you up on everything else. Stick around. I'll be right back. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back here on the show. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Joining us now, Bryson and Nick Porcelli joining us in here to talk about some of the latest goings on around the world of UCF sports. And we got to start, Bryson Turner, with your UCF Indoor Track Championship. Once again, UCF wins the indoor. It's their third indoor track and field championship in the American. And I'm always, I always think that this is huge because UCF doesn't have an indoor track facility. And they go in and win this one as a team. Give me the quick top three highlights. Top three highlights that what we know about this team, as now they turn their attention, some of them to the NCAAs, but then to the outdoor season.
Well, I would say the first big thing is UCF won this meet, I think, actually on Friday during the prelims, because the way that team meets work like this, by the way, is that each player or each athlete gets a point value depending on where they finish. And if you're in the final of an event, you get a point value, and it's like staggered based on where you finish. UCF managed to get half of the 32 spots, like final spots available across like a couple of, I think, 4 track events. UCF took up half of those spots, which means more points for them than the other team. UCF, the way I'm trying to put this is that UCF's sprint and hurdle program is so deep in this conference that it basically just completely outclassed the rest of the American. And among those runners, we have Renaya Jones, who was only a half a point away from scoring the most points of an individual athlete in the entire meet. So you have that. Renaya, of course, came away with gold in the 60-meter hurdles. Colorado State transfer Janya Jasper gets the gold in the 60-meter dash. Beyonce DeFreitas in the 200-meter dash gets a gold. I mean, just the sprint and hurdle program all over the place really just showed out this time. But you also got Jasmine Scott Kilgo and Nashira Collins getting 2 podium spots in the triple jump. All
right, so next up for track, NCAA indoors are March 10th and 11th, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. We'll be keeping a close eye on that going forward. Eric, a little football scheduling news. And this is key for, I know that our friend Noah Goldberg is very interested in this information. UCF was scheduled to play FAU in 2025. That game has been moved back to 2028.
Yeah, I think partly FAU, I guess that's scheduled FIU in the same date. Obviously, from a UCF standpoint, you're going to have 9 conference games in the Big 12. So good thing for both sides. Hey, let's just push it back a few years. So Noah's going to have to wait a little longer on the football end, which in football, it's just so bizarre to talk about a game that's going to be played 5 years from now. I mean, who knows what everybody looks like? But
let's take a look at this.
I think you're going to see more of these quirks.
Well, I was going to say, let's take a look at this though, because the schedule, because UCF got a break by one of the other many breaks that UCF got by moving to the Big 12 is. You only got to schedule 3 non-conference games instead of 4, right? So here's what it looks like right now. Remember we were talking about all the schedule problems UCF has. 2023 and 24 are set. 2023, Kent State at Boise State, Villanova. 2024, New Hampshire, Sam Houston, and then at Florida, October 5th. So you're probably going to have an early conference game somewhere mixed in early September.
Assuming Florida keeps the game. Obviously, if the SEC goes to 9 conference games, there could be a move there. May not. They might move the Miami game. Who knows? But, yes, as of now, yes.
2025, UCF has 2 dates set. At Maryland and home for North Carolina. So they need to get one more. We have nothing in 2026 yet. 2027 at North Carolina, home for Louisiana, and then 2028 Maryland, FAU, home back to back. So all of a sudden, it's like it's slowly but surely kind of coming together.
Well, it is, and I think obviously you want to get your home games. Remember, in the Big 12, 9 conference games, there's going to be years where you only have 4 home games, 5 road games in conference versus 5 and 4. So you got to balance that out from a scheduling standpoint. I think on years where you have 4 home games, you probably want to get 3 non-conference home games to get to 7, or at least 2 of them. So I think you're going to see a lot of FCS teams fill that schedule out a little bit. We'll see. It's part of the challenge, but you're right. You can move things around, add some pieces. I expect some announcements here within the next year or two about some of those future dates that you talked about that are open.
Who do you want to see? Like, I'm looking at this schedule right now. Like, 2025, you got 2 ACC teams. Do you want to see UCF play, like, just drop an FCS in there, or do you want to see, like, someone else?
I'm the wrong guy because I hate the fact that FCS and FBS play each other in football during the season, but it's not going away, and I think that's what they're going.
No, you are, in that case, you are the right guy, I should say, because do you want to say, okay? Let's say it's a non-FCS team. Let's say, who do you want? What kind of a team do you want to see mixed in there if you're playing 2 ACC teams? I should say Maryland's not an ACC. See, that's a hard thing to let go of.
There you go.
It's an ACC and a Big Ten team. So who do you want to see?
That's pretty. I would say. Obviously, the obvious answer would be a Miami type. An in-state battle like that would be great in a perfect world, but it's not. Look, it's going to be an FCS team. If you're going to do an FCS, pick a Florida team, Bethune or an FAMU would be fine. It's just not a UCF criticism. This is a college football as a whole. Everybody plays FCS, so it's not like UCF's doing anything different than other schools are. But 25. If you do the math. Because I believe that year, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, they would have 4 conference home games more than likely, right? Because it's every other year.
Let's see.
Because this year they're playing 4 home games.
Odd years we get 4 home games. Even years we get 5 conference home games.
So you look at 25. What, Maryland is at home, you said?
No, Maryland is in College Park.
Ooh,
North Carolina is,
obviously that's going to be
North Carolina is
it'll be an FCS game.
Yeah.
That'll be a home game. I wonder if they try to move that Maryland game, if they could fit another home game in there. Don't be shocked if things like that happen. But Maryland, I got family in Maryland, so I can.
Why not drag FIU up here and kick them around for 60 minutes, see what happens?
Wow, Scott Carr, huh? I want to bring back Scott Carr for a visit. And who's the head? Who's the head coach now? I forgot who's the head coach. I don't pay. Yeah, whatever. It's FIU. But FIU. As long as we don't have to go down there and play in that high school stadium that they're playing.
And then last little bit, actually a little bit more football we went to. Nick and Kyle and I were at the Orlando Guardians home opener this past weekend. One UCF player in particular, Nick, that we wanted to talk about, Terrence Plummer, who played well in that home opener. I thought he had a key sack and a forced fumble. It was a rough day for the Guardians. They lost to San Antonio 30-12 at home. And here's what I think is interesting. And I want to know what you think, Nick, because it's the issue that I saw was that the guys just don't have enough reps for together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can just tell, right? Yeah. So I think you kind of have to throw the score out. It's like as soon as these guys start getting more reps together, I think it'll be much better. But it was good to see Terrence play. What were your thoughts on this first weekend?
I had so much fun doing it. I was really impressed with the crowd. I texted you the amount yesterday. I believe it was around 12,000. Which I was really happy with. I think the league keeps promoting itself. That's going to go up a little bit. Terrence Plummer himself, I was really impressed with. Like you mentioned, he had a couple big tackles, including that forced fumble. Part of that I think is because you and I talked about this. There's a smaller roster. What is it, like 50, 40 something?
51 players on the total roster. 45 dressed for the game. So that roster's tight.
dress for the game, right? So like you're going to get more opportunities to make plays, and I think he took advantage of that. What the rep thing, I totally agree with that. It's just the only thing is like I feel like you can say that about every team in the XFL.
That's true.
Because it's definitely part of some of their struggles this weekend, but I think the other part just comes down to the type of players they got. Like that's all I have. But
I think that the key for the team is in the offense.
Yeah, no.
And I think what you were saying, watching the first 2 weeks of the XFL, I think that the offenses they're on it seems like the ones that are really good are they're kind of already there.
Right.
The others are on the verge of clicking. Like we saw several plays, I think, where a dropped pass, a penalty, really prevented the game from, I think, turning into possibly a shootout. It was looking really good early. I thought, Paxton Lynch was just a little bit off. I think that they have really that they have a little something going quite interesting. I think with DeAndre Francois.
Yeah.
As well. It's just a matter of making getting everything to click, and it's an uphill battle for the coaching staff and Terrell Buckley. But I think that they know that there's a good, if it starts clicking, and they need it to start clicking real quick, that they could turn it on in the right position. They're 0-2 right now, but I think that they're as close to turning it around and really turning it on as any team in the league from what I've seen. I think we've seen like sort of the max of a couple teams right now. Like, I mean, like Arlington, I think, is kind of hitting their peak. And but UCF, or excuse me, Orlando, they have it, when it starts, I think that there's the biggest delta, so to speak, from where they are right now to where they can be, because they have some talent on offense, man. Eli Rogers is out there.
100% do. I love their running backs. Like, it's as simple as this. Their next game is a must-win. It's as simple as that. They have to win this next game and, maybe build momentum. They'll be back home on March 11th. They'll get a rematch against Houston, and I'll be interested to see how that goes. As the season goes on, I think they'll get better, but that's kind of like what you can say about all of them because they'll just get more reps. It's a little harder considering we're already like a fifth of the way through the year because there's only 10 games.
I know. It happens quick. I mean, that's amazing. By the way, that was the other thing that actually that as a fan, I really enjoyed was how quick the games went.
Oh, yeah.
That game was over in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I know. I remember you saying you're it's only been like an hour and a half and we're starting the second half.
Yeah, we're starting the second half. Usually the first half alone lasts, especially in college and the NFL, lasts more than an hour and a half sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
We were starting the second half right at 90 minutes, and the game just moved. It really moved, and it was fun. I think again, the quality of play is always going to be one of the key things with a new league, XFL, USFL, you name it. I think we saw last year, in particular with the USFL, the quality of play really increased, and from the start of the year toward the end. That Birmingham team that won the league with Marlon Williams from UCF in there they looked sharp. They peaked at the right time, and my hope is that it does the same for the Guardians. But like you said, got to win this one coming up this week, I think.
Yeah. Because you never know what could happen. Like you brought up Birmingham winning the USFL championship. They played against the Philadelphia Stars, and if I remember correctly, they were only 6-4.
Right.
They didn't have that, impressive a record, but it's only a 14 playoff. So if you could just get hot at the right time and get in, you could still win it.
Yeah, 10-game regular season, right? I mean, so and the league is divided into two divisions with 4 teams each.
Right.
Right now they have a North and a South. All right, and in the North you have DC at 2-0 and St. Louis at 2-0. And and here's the thing in the South, Houston's 2-0, but if you beat them, all right, you're pulling them back to the field. Yeah. Orlando right now is standing at 0-2. Arlington and San Antonio, who are also in the same division, are 1-1. And when you look at Orlando's schedule, and I want to see again, as we go into week 3, they're at Arlington next week, so that's going to be key. You can pull one game back from that, right? So
against Adrian Killens.
Against Adrian Killens, that's right, the Arlington Renegades, and then you're home and then all of a sudden you're home for Houston with a chance to get back to 500, and it's anybody. Just like that in 2 weeks, it's anybody's game. So the next game overall for the Guardians is Sunday, March the 5th at 4 p.m. on FX against Adrian Killens and the Arlington Renegades. And then week 4 is the next home game that will be on FX as well. Saturday, March 11th, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Orlando at home facing the Houston Roughnecks. So, like I said, a lot of football left to be played, a lot of development to be had. And I think it's fun watching, guys who are, trying to develop new skills and trying to develop into even better players, something that, I think pro football is needed for a long time. And the fact that they're here in Orlando doing it, I think is great. So I had a lot of fun on Sunday, even despite the result, and I know you did too. So I'm hoping that this.
I can't wait to go back, man. I
know. I hope that this continues to build. All right, we're gonna dip out here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Thanks again to Kyle, Drew, and Eric. The SOTG on Twitter is Kyle for the student of the game, Statboy Drew for Andrew, and of course Eric Lopez Elo for Eric. You can follow Nick at Nick Porcelli2, Nick Porcelli in the number 2. Bryson is at It's Bryson Turner, and I'm of course at Jeff_Sharon. Follow us collectively at Black and Gold Banneret on Twitter, which is UCF Banneret_SBN. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget our YouTube channel as well. We'll be pushing a lot of content as well. And a little update on our branding. I remember last week that we said that the branding of this podcast would change following this week's show. I actually got late word from SB Nation that they're going to extend us one more month as the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast while they sort out a landing spot for us in terms of hosting. So we're not going to be rebranding just yet. Either way, you won't have to change what feed you download us for. Our feed will not change. You'll still have access to our previous shows as well. It's just that the name of the show will change. So if this new podcast pops on called The Night Shift, don't worry about it. It's still us. We're still here. All right? So for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the week. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, and we will catch you next week with more UCF sports. Until then, go Knights, charge on!